Juris Vodcast with Scott Pearce.
Is it okay for an employer to retaliate against an employee who cooperates with an internal investigation of sexual discrimination? You would think that the obvious answer would be no, because you've got to get honest information in order to investigate and remedy discrimination on the job. The Sixth Circuit reached the opposite result in a case called Crawford versus Metro. At issue is a federal anti-discrimination law called Title VII. This law expressly protects employees from retaliation in two ways: employees who participate in an investigation and those who oppose discriminatory practices are supposed to be shielded from retaliation. In the instant case, Ms. Crawford was a 30-year employee of the defendant, a government agency. She was called in for an interview on allegations of sexual harassment that had been made against a manager, whose duties included investigating sexual harassment claims. At that interview, Ms. Crawford accused the manager of sexual harassment, both of herself and of others. She was later fired. The Sixth Circuit held that Ms. Crawford did not oppose discriminatory practices because she did not instigate the investigation by complaining. The court held that Ms. Crawford's participation in the investigation wasn't protected by the participation clause because charges had not yet been filed. It's worth keeping in mind that employer investigations into allegations of discrimination happen all the time. They're a big part of the statutory scheme for avoiding Title VII liability and minimizing damages. For example, an employer must follow reasonable policies and procedures for investigating and responding to allegations of harassment if it wants to have an affirmative defense to liability. Plus, in order to avoid punitive damages for intentional discrimination, employers must prove good faith efforts to comply with Title VII. The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to hear Crawford versus Metro this term. One hopes they would choose to overrule the Sixth Circuit, thereby strengthening our system for remedying discrimination on the job. For Juris Vodcast, this is Scott Pearce. Thanks for your attention.
Juris Vodcast is a production of Nuclear Podcasting. Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives.